I started by indicating that we're here to launch The Hidden Cost of Car Ownership by Desmond Darko. And I'm very excited because, look, I've been going through the book, and I was surprised that, somebody went on a motorbike, got into a filling station, filled a vehicle, took the money, and ran away. Of course, nobody paid attention. But also some of the things that, and today we're here at CFAO, some of the things that the roadside mechanics can always do to you. They always would have negotiations, they'll have discussions, get your money, share. The next moment you take your vehicle home, you have another problem. So how do you solve it? I like the bit about making sure that whatever you purchase, you have a receipt. At least you can always go back and check. Recently, someone called me and said, oh, you come, bring your vehicle and let's, fill the air conditioner gas for you. I was very excited. I took it there, went for my car. The air conditioner wasn't working. Of course, mine was not a bit of a cold and hot situation, but it wasn't working. Eventually, I had to go back to the same people, and they said, oh, the motor has a problem. You have to change it. Now, the motor that I didn't want to change a year earlier, and they gave me a home-used one. Now I had to buy a brand new one. So I actually understand when you say sometimes it's always important you buy genuine spare parts. Because I felt it was okay getting a home-used one. You know how you go to Abosoka and the guys would deceive you that the home-used ones are better than the brand new ones. Well. I bought a home-used one. In less than 1 year, I went back. Home use for 4,000 in less than 1 year, brand new for 7,000. And it's never given me a problem again. So I'm happy, and I'm sure that for all of us who are going to get the book, we would also be happy. Now, let's move on. And I've been trying to tell us why we are here. But let me invite the organizer of the program to give us some few remarks. Before he does that, a bit of housekeeping rules. So if you want to use the washroom, you just go up the stairs, turn right. You see a gray door, that's for males, and I'm told it's a brown door. I'm colorblind, so if you go and it's not brown, don't blame me. But I'm told it's a brown door. As for the gray one, I can see. But the one that I'm told is brown, I am not sure it's brown, even though I'm colorblind. So the brown one is for females. But where's Papa Bills? Let's invite Papa Bills briefly. Yes, he'll give us some few remarks. Papa Bills, come. I have put you on the spot. Well, my man doesn't want to speak. But let me acknowledge the presence of some few persons who have joined us, this afternoon. And sometimes I'm tempted to say morning. If I say morning, please bear with me, okay? Because I always say good morning. I see, these days it's called Bull God, right? I have to look at it again because I've always known the name as Bulldog. Any of them goes. Vida Educhumwa is of UTV. Ekuma Mamazimbi, of course. The scarf says it all, we know. Jerry Justice is with the multimedia group on Adom FM. Thank you very much for joining us. And Yvonne Laye is with the EcoBank group. And Leslie Doku, thank you all for making time to be with us. Okay. So let's move on. And look, I've been telling you bits and pieces of the book. As we move on, we would get to have a review of the book. But as we do that, I think it's important we review the book now, to have an understanding of how the writing was done. One of the things I always look out for in a book is to look at the style of the writer and look at what he intends to communicate. Because whatever you intend to communicate, whenever I pick your book, it should be clearly shown right from the beginning to the end. And whatever pictures you want to create in my mind, I should see it even as I read that book. So the first reviewer, let's welcome Vida Educhumwa with a round of applause.
Houses will wonder why I'm reviewing a book on cars. Because you mostly find myself, Bulldog, Jerry Justice, Ekuma Mamazimbi talking entertainment. But today, we are here to tell you that we do every kind of analysis. And I'm very excited to be here this afternoon. We have gathered here for a very important exercise, and that is to launch the hidden cost of car ownership. My mission here is very simple. It is to review this book. I'm very lucky, I'm very privileged to have one of the first copies here. And I must say that let's put our hands together for Mr. Desmond Darko. It is not easy to document the knowledge that you have acquired. And I was telling Bulldog that it's about time that we also put our pens on paper and write something down. Ekuma Mama Zimbi will be releasing a book on headscarves very soon because it's very iconic. Now, for this book, it touches on a very important subject matter. And I believe that the DVLA and the road safety, they have been scrambling to resolve the matters that you raise in this book. There are talks on vehicles, accidents, its causes, the deaths, and it feels as if it should be in the reading book of every school. Every school must have this as part of their social studies, reading list. I have worked in the newsroom a number of years, since 2007. And every month when the road safety releases the list or the number of people who have died, you hear some of the journalists saying, oh, this month, nipa and wukra, as if it was a normal occurrence, but it's very, very dangerous. So, to have sanity on our roads, there's a shared responsibility. The driver has his, the fuel attendant, the mechanic, and everybody has a role to play. So this book, as I said, it has 8 chapters. The very first one talks about what is a vehicle. So when I saw that, I'm like, Mr. Darko, I say vehicle, there will be any vehicle. But after reading it, I understood the reason why he had to dedicate a whole chapter to talk about what a vehicle is. So from this book, I learned that it is a means of transportation. That's the basic one that we all know. But it is also coming from a Greek word saying that it is autos mobilis, meaning that something that moves itself. So I was like, the concept of self-driven cars were conceived many centuries ago without us even knowing about it. And I'm happy that you mentioned it in this book. There's also the history of the first car to ever be invented. And I was curious to know because it has Benz Velo written on it. And we are here at Benz today. And if anybody knows about French, Velo means bicycle. So the first car looked like a car, at the same time it looked like a bicycle. And there's a beautiful photo in this book to depict that as well. So it was by Carl Benz and his wife Bertha Benz. So very soon I think I should launch a car with my surname. My surname is not bad at all. I mean, Boating, automobile, somewhere. The one thing that struck me was also the evolution of cars. Just as human beings evolved, cars also have evolved over the years. There was the steam-powered cars. We moved to the gasoline era. That was the modern era, through to the mass production era, which was spearheaded by Henry Ford, where cars were no longer a luxury, but it was a necessity for all to use. And then we moved to the golden age, which comes with style and speed. The Cadillacs, the Rolls Royce, if you don't buy it at the right place, you might just get, your car seized. That was what came to my mind when I was reading that bit. And to that effect, there is a despite automobile. I think it is a clear space for you to, recount the evolution of cars as I've seen in this book. Now, there was also the era of competition and innovation. And that is where we have the Ford Mustang, the Chevrolet Camaro, the Porsche, and how oil crisis led to the manufacturing of brands like Toyota. For most of us, anytime we mention car in Ghana, everybody will run to Toyota because you see Toyota there, a free baby and a see sa era no, and it is interesting for you to have this book to know how it came about. And then there's also Honda, there's also Nissan, and etc. So in this book, there's also a significant mention of digital age of cars. Brands began competing, not just on designs, but on technology. And Benz, for instance, you integrated screens, sensors, and onboard computers. And then came the hybrid. And I'm excited to know that it was Toyota Prius in 1997. That was the first hybrid car that we got. And then we moved to the new millennium, which is a smart and electric. I was having a conversation right there with Akuma and Bugod that very soon we'll be moving to electric cars. Chale, we you see be now to fuel on it toy. The moment you use an electric, I mean, it saves the environment as well, and we need to start considering that. All that is found here in the book. And our famous Kantanka automobile also joined the conversation, the Millennium League. So we are excited to know that we have a homegrown, company that is part of the success story of the evolution of cars. And we are very proud of that as Ghanaians. And by so saying, I'd like to say, may his soul also rest in perfect peace. Now, moving on to the second chapter, it is the purpose of a vehicle. I'll keep it very short. We are asking, how did you get your car? Did you borrow to buy the car? Whenever you see the head of the Susu group driving a new car, you know that Radimewo or the Misusu Nakwakoje or the Misusu 7. So there are, chapters that tells you that it is essential that you own a car, but not necessarily borrowing or using your Susu money, especially if you are the head of the Susu group, to get a car to buy. The book also teaches you how to match your purpose of owning a car to your lifestyle. The Gen Zs will say, no go do past yourself. Stay within your means. So chapter 3 also talks about how to use the car the right way. And I'll leave the other chapters for you to, peruse and make sure that you really understand the purpose for which you have the car that you're using right now. So a round of applause for Desmond Darko. I really enjoyed reading the book, and I hope that everybody here departs this hall with a copy. Thank you very much.
Vida, I'm sure you were a very good student in summary. Yes, you did very well. When you talked about social studies, it reminded me of something my colleagues and I say on the Super Morning Show all the time. When somebody is talking and business as usual, we say, oh, that's social studies. He's just talking. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But that's just by the way. Let me acknowledge the presence of the MD of CFAO, Demola Adelabu. Thank you very much for joining us. And Fabrice Moran, who is Director of Operations for Multi-Brands at CFAO. The next reviewer is a man I haven't seen in ages, even though we bear the same surname or last name. Executive Secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amwa. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Established. To say that I'm happy to be here. If Desmond had launched this book without me, I'm sure it would have turned to a fight of some magnitude. Because I have supported, and I think that this is one of the best things to, as it were, remove a lot of the myths, You would be here today, you here tomorrow, some social media videos. I'm trying not to use the microphone too much because my voice is already, high pitch. Forgive me. You would see videos circulate all over social media. And most times, you end up wondering whether these circulations are true or they are false. I think that Desmond has done a very good job in removing a lot of the myths that social media will be serving us. Not too long ago, there was one going around talking about how you get cheated at the pumps, and you hear that if you don't want to be cheated, you should go and say you are buying in liters. From years of experience and my training, I sometimes wonder how these narratives are come about. But, well, because of the knowledge gap, people tend to always be alarmed, and they tend to believe some of these narratives that they come across, particularly on social media. So if there could be a better time for a book this deep, it is now. And I'm happy that Desmond decided to help Ghanaians demystify some of the myths that over the years we've been forced to either accept, or sometimes you don't know whether to accept or not, but, well, that's what it is. So I'm doing a review of chapter 5, fueling, behind the scenes, what really happens. There are a lot of myths. I'm sure most of us here will still be wondering, when I get to the fuel station, am I being given what I deserve to be given? Desmond has done a very good job, taking you step by step or practically to expose how these things, you can at least get in there already knowledgeable and get in there knowing what to do and what not to do, so that you don't get cheated and you don't get to pay more for things that you should ordinarily not pay more for. And so in my introduction, The Hidden Cost of Car Ownership, authored by Desmond, presents definitely a practical and insightful examination of fuel usage, operations, consumer safety, and the hidden realities within the downstream sector, spanning pages 73 to 114. Let me go straight to the review so I don't bore you too much. Understanding fuel, which is the chapter 5 proper. Understanding fuel, combustion, and the fuel types that we have. I'm sure most of us here don't even understand that petrol is not just petrol, and that there are different grades of petrol. Diesel itself is also not just diesel. There are different grades of diesel, and what works for your car or what works for the trotro might not work for your brand new CFAO driven car. Let me put this across. One of the very first cars I ever owned was got from here, CFAO. And it served me very well. So I'm surprised that Desmond, in deciding for a venue, decided that this is the place to also come. Your vehicles are very good. The chapter begins by redefining fuel. People think that fuel is fuel. It is just not a commodity sold at the pumps. And so for most of the trotro users, or for most of us, I am a trotro driver myself, like I usually would say. We just go in and say, yeah, top petrol. Even when we are buying diesel, we go in and say, oh, Mame petrol, 100 Ghana. If the pump attendant is not careful, there will be confusion and they will pump petrol to you. Meanwhile, your car requires diesel or automated gas oil, as we call it, AGO. So you went in there and said petrol. Confusion. And Desmond has done a very good job with that. He goes on to talk about how fuel combines with air to create the combustion you need. One of the few things you learn earlier when you come to do anything hydrocarbon is the flammability of petroleum products. And for petrol to be able to burn, you are looking at three things being present. You need the oxygen, you need the combustible or the flammable substance, which is usually petrol, and the spark. The vehicle is built already with the two other things in place. There's some oxygen already circulating. There's a spark, which is from your crank anytime you turn on your starter. So you would need the fuel to be able to get the engine up and running. In your vehicles, you will not get, of course, the burning that you get out there when you put petrol and put a spark or fire on it. But there's some fire ignited when you turn on your engine, and that is how your engine is able to propel itself to run. And so Desmond goes a step further to explain the relationship between your fuel quality, again, and engine performance. Like I indicated earlier, we are all forced to believe that fuel is fuel. And so when I go in there and say I'm buying petrol, and another comes in and say I'm buying RON 95, one will come at a higher cost, but so would the performance also not be the same. You will be on the motorway and sometimes a smaller vehicle, right? For those who are used to the V8 and the V6 and the bigger SUVs, you'll be on the motorway and a smaller Vitz, just leaves you behind. And sometimes you are wondering if the driver is crazy. He's not crazy. He probably knows exactly what fuel he puts in his car. Some of the fuels are meant for performance. In fact, in one of the readings, you also come across the fact that the 95 to 98, the octane 98, the sports cars you see at the rallies, they cannot consume 91. They will not give that kind of performance. And so they would go for the enhanced or the more quality petroleum products. Desmond does a very good job at giving you the relationship between the fuel quality, what you buy, and how your engine responds to what you put in there. I think it is important for most Ghanaians to be made aware of these things. Again, he talks of the differences between petrol and diesel engines. For most of us who bought cars earlier, when you come, it is the car guys who will tell you, oh, this is diesel, this is petrol. You are even confused. So which is which? Then you ask them which engine lasts longer, and they say diesel, and you are like, But diesel engines are noisy and loud. Why do they last? We don't know. So you've done a very good job explaining the nexus between petrol and diesel engines. One is faster, one is quieter, one is smoother. The other is a bit louder, but it also bends and takes you far. One is more expensive, the other is not too expensive, but one will last more than the other. I think that I don't need to bore you with everything. Get a book if you want to know which one is better, according to what Desmond has put together. Again, he talks of the differences between the two engines. There are differences. So when you drive a diesel engine, somebody drives a petrol engine. The tendency to think that we are all driving, let's say, a CFA Mitsubishi L200. I don't know if you have the two engines, petrol and diesel. Yes. And so what servicing routine might apply to the diesel engine, you could have a bit different from what the petrol engine does. And I think that is very important, an education. He also finally discusses the importance of fuel grades, additives, and blends. Not long ago in Ghana, people were complaining. You buy fuel and suddenly your car, you have a delayed response. The petrol could be bad, the diesel could be bad. But what is really causing the problem? Desmond has taken time. And what I like about his book is that for Kubolos like us, I don't like school plenty. It is still very, very easy to read and to digest. You are able to make meaning of what he is discussing. He did not employ too many technical terms to elevate the diction beyond the comprehension of people who don't like school like me. And so if you didn't even go to too much of college and universities, this is a book that definitely breaks down a lot of the concepts for you. I will not bore you. Desmond also goes a step further to talk about how to settle disputes. If you go to the fuel station, you say, I'm buying 200 cedis. The pump attendant says that I have given you 200 cedis. But your gauge says I got only 20 cedis or 50 cedis. There's a resolution to that situation. But most Ghanaians do not know. He goes a step further to break it down, to explain the need to request for the 10-liter can, which is supposed to be available at every fuel station the moment they start selling. Unfortunately, sometimes you are not clear in the mind. Instead of challenging them to say, look, provide me your 10-liter can and let's verify, because that is a physically, it's made for you to be able to physically determine how much fuel really has been pumped, from the pump itself, the machine. But most of us don't ask. So you drive away angry and say, I won't buy from you again. But truth is, you leaving is encouraging that station to cheat the next person also. So instructively, he says that challenge it when you are not sure what the fuel station has pumped to you. I am happy with that education. Again, pump calibration, manipulation, he talks about it. Fuel adulteration. I had to go all the way to, is it Akuse or Akosombo, not long ago, because some consumers were complaining that in Suonkwa, the fuel they bought looks like there's a lot of water sediments and other sediments. That makes their engines not respond the way it used to. Desmond has done a very good job talking about fuel adulteration. For me, I would definitely request you to pump so that I even see physically what sort of product you are pumping. Sometimes, physically, you can even tell that the product is bad. But it is difficult to dispute that, without a laboratory analysis. And so when you are not clear, then the law says that get the has broken down that also. Fraudulent services. Some of the attendants, one of the risks you bear, because your tank is just behind, when you drive in, most times you are a bit ahead of the pump itself. And most times we are lazy to get down, so we only tell the pump attendant 500. If you are not lucky, and the guy has not reset the pump. I came in earlier and I said 100, so he pumped my 100. Instead of resetting the pump to start from 0, you also drive behind me and say 500. So while carrying the nozzle, he continues from the 100. Desmond has made a very good job, or a very good effort at breaking some of these difficult concepts down for all of us. Lastly, Desmond also talks about management weaknesses, regulatory gaps, and industry ethics. Of course, the fuel station does not run by itself. You would have at the fuel station, even the pump attendant, the station manager, and everybody. There are those also in the shops that sells groceries for you. They all have a role to play. If the fuel station manager is not attentive, the attendants will play all kinds of games with you. If the station manager is also a criminal, then he would scale up the criminal activities even further. And so whilst the pump tells you you've gotten 15 liters, what the pump really dispensed is not even 15 liters. So it's a book that you cannot avoid. The mysteries that we walk around wondering, indeed, what am I doing? Am I just buying a car to run it because I have the money? They could be cheating you, or you could be cheating your own self also because you don't have knowledge of the things happening in and around the station. One of the safety things you spoke about is the exit and entrance. I was guilty of that. I get to a fuel station. I don't care where the exit and the entrance signs are. So if I get in there, whichever comes first, I just branch and then I enter. Desmond takes it a notch to explain that you may just crash into somebody who is also getting out simply because you thought that there are two openings. So either of them I can enter from anywhere. This is very practical, and I think that I'm also happy to have been part of this review. In my work, this would equally help, and I would recommend to the DVLA to ensure that the various driving schools, how do you call them? The car driving, the driving schools, where the women usually go to learn, with the trotro drivers, they just put you some aplanque and you know how to move. But most of the driving schools, the car driving schools, would do very well to give their students a copy of this so that even before you put a car on the road, you would understand the do's and don'ts as broken down effectively by Desmond. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for having me, Winston.
And you make a very important point because, going through the book, I look at even the kind of engine oils you have to buy based on the kind of vehicle you're driving, and some of the brands we buy without knowing the temperatures that, they are meant for. So it's good, like you say, those of us who learned driving by change gear and all of that, maybe not a big problem. But I have one, I'll go and give it to my wife, and I'll always remind her that you read the book so that you don't call me the next time to say you have a problem. Now, the next reviewer is Dennis Gawuga. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
But very few truly everything mobility, everything vehicles. We have over 117 years of operations in Ghana. So I think you can give that a round of applause. I'm breaking protocol a little bit by speaking ahead of my MD, but he conveys his warmest compliments to everybody here. Already, Fabrice has been introduced, so we'll go straight ahead. I'll tell a little story. I think we've all launched straight away into reviewing the book, right? So I remember the first time I met Desmond. I was upstairs working, and as usual, the receptionist calls me and says, somebody wants to see me. My day is usually very full with people asking to present proposals, and usually it distorts my day. So begrudgingly, I decided to come downstairs. I had prepared a little excuse to give to him because I knew whatever it was, I probably wasn't ready to handle. So, well, I didn't go down with so much enthusiasm, but I met him, the tall, large man, soft-spoken. And one thing struck me. For those who know Desmond, I've just only known him for a few weeks. What I've observed is that he carries with him a certain aura. And this aura has allowed him to meet with very important people, including the current president of the country, which he noted in this book, and amongst other notable people. And I'd say it's a very notable thing that you have as a character. And it's also quite telling that, yes, like I said, it's brought him to very powerful rooms. And I listened to Desmond when he pitched to me that he wanted to organize a book launch here. I still had my response in my mind that I'm not sure we're going to do it. But I took the book and decided to go through a few pages. And I realized, wait, this guy has something in here. He's talking about what we have also, as automobile companies, been talking about. And it turned out to be a very practical, relevant book. And it was strong enough for me to share with our senior management, and I convinced them that as CFAO, where we are the home of mobility, it would make sense that we own this conversation, and that is why we are participants in this journey with Desmond. I have mentioned that CFAO has been around for 117 years, and we've been across Africa for over 170 years, with a growing presence in over 34 countries. So when a book like this comes along, that shifts the conversation from just buying vehicles to understanding ownership, that aligns perfectly with what we believe in at CFAO. Now, this book itself, like I said, is very practical. It walks you through all what we think vehicle ownership is and reveals what it actually is, right? And it challenges us to make, good purchase decisions. Often, it challenges how we make purchasing decisions, all right? And our purchasing decisions are often made through emotions or probably dictated by price. And it introduced the concept of total cost of ownership. And this is one thing that we drum very hard here at CFAO. Yes, it may be cheap now, but in the long term, how much is it costing you really? When the car is in your possession, the time the car spends with you, every peso you spend on the car amounts to the cost of the car. So it is a very poignant thing to notice. And he covers the cost, basically covers the total concept of the total cost of vehicle ownership. And this covers thinking about what car you want to buy, bringing it into Ghana, or buying it from a dealership, regulators, issues with regulators, safety issues, the electronics, fuel, all the various aspects of a car that you need to know that would constitute cost for you at the end of the day, Desmond has dealt with. So we connect with what actually constitutes the real cost of the vehicle. And like I said, this is one thing we have explained to a lot of our customers, that what is often underestimated is the accumulated cost over time, the constant repairs, the uncertainties, the downtime. We don't cost downtime. We think it's an inconvenience, but it is cost to you at the end of the day. And here's something that not many people know. Our vehicles, especially our Mercedes-Benz models you see parked outside, are tropicalized. When we say they are tropicalized, it means that the vehicle engines are engineered to burn the fuels that we have in this country. My earlier review touched on fuels, and it's very important we know this because many people bring in vehicles and they end up having constant injector issues, constant fuel pump issues, and they say, oh, this car is giving me problems, but simply because they don't understand this very simple fact. The fact that the vehicle was not meant to burn fuels from this region. It was probably meant for another region that burns higher octane fuels. And another example that we see often is that you bring a vehicle from, say, Europe, and the thermostats and other sensors are calibrated for the European markets. Then you bring it in here, it gives you a problem, you take it to the mechanic, and he says, where the young condemn, young direct. And we all know, right? And what happens? We start having issues, engine damage, system failures, and sometimes fires. We've seen quite a number of cars burning up on their way. It's simply because electrical systems have been tampered with. Now, of course, not everyone is able to afford a brand new vehicle from the showroom. But this book arms you with the knowledge to know exactly what to go in for. And therefore, it's quite interesting that Desmond has touched on all of these things. And what I find particularly interesting in this book, as the lady earlier on said, is that there was reference to the very first automobile that was built by Carl and Bertha Benz. And it's quite symbolic that today we are in the Mercedes-Benz showroom. And so it's like from the first automobile ever created to the most advanced automobiles you see outside there. And this book is what is helping us rethink ownership over the ages. And that connection is really powerful. So I'll leave you with this thought. The real cost of a vehicle is not what you pay today. It is what you continue to pay over time. So as you leave here today, take a copy of this book with you. Let it guide your thinking. And when you're ready to make your next decision, come and speak to us at CFAO. Don't go anywhere else. Whether it's a Mercedes-Benz, a Mitsubishi just across the room, or a Suzuki further down there, speak to us. We'll not sell you just a car. We'll sell you the entire ownership journey. Our sales guys are around. Feel free, walk to any of our showrooms and see what we have for you. We have an end-to-end solution, just like Desmond has written in his book. Thank you very much.
Very instructive, because look, we've been talking about this book, we've been talking about everything contained in this book, and Dennis has talked about how the book was written. For me, you know, those of us who studied literature and all, when we pick books, we want to look out for a lot of things, but we also would always remind ourselves that at the end of the day, the book should speak to you. If you're reading a book that you'd have to pause, think over and over again, you would always find it difficult completing that book. One of the things I realized about this book is that if you pick it, you probably would want to just finish reading it. Because, you see, the words used and how it is written is very conversational. You're reading, and it's relatable because these are things you probably may have experienced as a vehicle owner or maybe as a driver. So you get to read them and like, okay, so this is what actually happened. And I was telling you about when I looked at the kind of engine oils we even buy in this country, and I always advertise them. I didn't know what they really meant, okay? I'll go and leave my car at, a filling station, and I say, change the engine oil for me, and I'll go for it, okay? But now, if I live here, I actually would make sure that I know the kind of oil you're putting in there, because that's very important. And like we say, we learn every day. And this book has taught me a lot. At this moment, we have to hear from the author, who's an accomplished Ghanaian entrepreneur with extensive experience in the fuel and transportation industry. He began his career as a pump attendant and worked diligently through the ranks, eventually becoming a retailer. Through dedication, discipline, and industry knowledge, he has successfully managed over 10 filling stations across the country, including the #1 Shell station in West Africa. Over the years, he's worked with a wide range of vehicles, gaining deep practical insight into how different types of vehicles operate, their common challenges, and the safety standards required within the transport sector. His hands-on experience and industry expertise have positioned him as a knowledgeable voice in vehicle operations and filling station management. Let's welcome with a round of applause, Desmond Darko.
All of us will be part of this historic moment. Just yesterday, I was talking to a friend about today's lunch, and quickly he asked me, Desmond, why the hidden cost? And I'm glad he's here today. So to answer him and everyone who has the same thought, I say yes, the hidden cost, because most of the things said in this book are the things that are actually hidden in our plain sight. We see them every day. They happen to us every day. In fact, we live with them, yet we fail to learn and understand them. Money, convenience, and peace of mind. My vision for writing this book started about 19 years ago when I was fuel pump attendant. And permit me to quote Abraham Lincoln. He said, if you give me 5 hours to chop down a tree, I will use the first 4 hours to sharpen my axe. This tells us all how important. I personally believe that when you are given a task, you do it and do it well, because there would come a time you have to account or give back to society. And no wonder we are here today to unveil a journey that started many years ago, a journey that has given birth to a book titled The Hidden Cost of Car Ownership. A book that reviews how a decision made on a matrimonial bed by Carl and Betta Benz several decades ago has impacted our lives today. It is important to know that this initiative by this spouse is not for luxury purposes only, but a necessity also. A decision to challenge mobility to make life easier and save precious time. This decision has also provided opportunities, businesses, and competition among others. Today, about 40 to 50% of the workforce owns a vehicle, commercial or individual, government or private. We must have the knowledge we require to handle them so they can give us the comfort and convenience we need and not to punish us. Even the Holy Bible says, can two work together without agreeing? Personal research indicates that the average cost for one private vehicle for 4 years is equivalent to raising a child through university. And what contributes to these expenses? Ladies and gentlemen, the real cost of car ownership is not just the purchasing price, but maintenance, repairs, and fueling. They say, to born pikin is no hard, but money for cocoa, which literally means giving birth to a child is not difficult, but the child's upbringing. All this will cost you dearly. Your time, your money, and sometimes your life. Yes, we speculate. We point accusing fingers, and we blame each other. We often hear the drivers allege they have pumped me air instead of fuel at the filling stations. The mechanics give them different fault when they visit their shops. And properties have been and will continue to be lost on our highways. But we cannot prevent this if we don't identify the root causes and provide solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I have applied all the decades of experiences I gained from apprenticeship to leadership and the automobile industry to not only apportion blames, but most importantly, to proffer appropriate solutions. Just another book, but a book that clearly identifies the roles and responsibilities of all of us. A book that tells the driver that driving is not all about covering a distance. A book that tells the mechanic that repair is not only loosening and tightening. A book that tells the filling station operator that customer service is not just about fueling, but a shared responsibility. So we are now launching this book. The privileged few who had the opportunity to preview it have already given it, such as the driver's manual. Some call it Safety Security Automotive Guide. And I'm sure by the time each and every one of you grabs a copy and finish reading, you will call it Life, Property, and Money Saving Book. But I will still call it the hidden cost of car ownership. I thank you all for coming to celebrate this milestone with me. And God bless us all.
Look, one of the things that bother all of us is the amount of money we spend after we buy a vehicle. So if we can find out ways and means of dealing with a hidden cost, why not? We'll definitely be happy. And like I indicated, when I go home, I'll hand this over to my wife so that the next time she's driving and she has an issue, at least I know that I'm not going to receive a call that I'll be told, oh, there's a problem with the car. No. You know what the problem is. Do the right things. And you can trust the women that once it comes to their cars, they'll do everything right. That's why they always will leave it with the mechanic. Oh, there's this little fault. Unlike the men who say, oh, say, meet me 2 or 3 days. And the man says, oh, yeah, you can take it for 2 or 3 days. He says, okay, then let's use it for some 2 or 3 days. And those 2 or 3 days may actually create more problems for you. So we've all been talking about this book, okay? What we're going to do now is to officially unveil this book, The Hidden Cost of Car Ownership, and have it launched. And we've put together a very nice video for you to officially launch this book that we've all been talking about. Let's have it.
Drive off, but very few truly understand what their car is trying to tell them. There are hidden costs, maintenance, repairs, wrong advice, mechanic mistakes, fuel bills, poor decisions, and sometimes the price is more than money. Car owners have relied on assumptions, rules, and most of the time trial and error. But what if the real danger is not the car itself, but what we don't know about it? Drawing from a decade of experience in the field of automotive industry, Desmond Darko holds back the curtain on the realities every driver, car owner, and future car owner must understand. This is not just a book about cars. It's a guide to protecting your vehicle, your wallet, and your life. Before you buy, before you drive, before the next repair, discover what every car owner needs to know. The Hidden Costs of Car Ownership by Desmond Darko is now officially out.